Charlie Ashley got his start in real estate after getting kicked out of college and then finally graduating in 2013. Charlie settled into the 8 to 6 grind after that. In 2017, he met his future fiancee, but needed to move from Virginia to, is it to Kentucky?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Magic of editing, as I can just throw it in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Needed to move from Virginia to Kentucky to close the distance. Starting with a search for how to rent your house led him down a road to renovating and renting his first home. Since then, he's bird 3 long-term rentals, 1 Airbnb, and completed a live-in flip. Charlie, welcome to the show.
Hey, Michael. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. So tell us about your deal.
Yeah, so the deal I'll go over was the one I call the pit. And it was a nightmare for about 9 months.
Okay.
So I'm totally ready to be a dad, I guess. And then, but it turned, I checked like all the boxes of like newbie doing their first deal. Didn't know how to work with contractors, went way over budget, went way past my time frame. And at the end of the day, it's turned into this like golden nugget of an amazing property.
Awesome.
So today we'll talk about the pit. Yeah.
Sweet. Okay. So what type of asset class was this?
This is a single family home.
Okay. So you get a single family home. And how did you find the deal?
So it kind of came to me.
Oh, great. Even better.
So I through a local meetup, I met, there's a local Facebook page that supports the local meetup here in Lexington, Kentucky. This is where this was. And when I first moved here I just threw myself out there. I said, hey, let me help you out with anything in real estate, essentially one of those posts you see all the time in these Facebook groups. So someone reached out to me and his name was Dane. And we met up and just kind of shot the breeze and talked about real estate. And from there, we just started hanging out more and more, talking about real estate more and more. And through him, I met our buddies, Corey and Dave.
Okay.
Corey and Dave bought this house. They ripped it to pieces. It's a do a flip because it needed a lot. It needed everything.
Sure.
And they didn't want to do it anymore. So they told Dane, and then Dane called me and he said, hey, they want to get rid of this house. Give them a call if you want to buy it before they put it on the MLS. So that's kind of what started it.
Okay. Cool. So they tell you about the house. They tell you about it. What kind of a condition is in when you step on site and take a look at it?
It's basically a physical house of cards. So when you walk up, it looks like a house from the outside, but then you go in the front door and you go inside and you go, oh, there's nothing here. So they had like these really old, I think 2x8s or something they had from the original structure propping up the house. So the back, like 3/4 of the house was off the ground and just resting on these few beams. And they had a few footers poured because the foundation was like done. But other than that, like I remember Dave walked up when he was showing it to me, he just pushed against one of the walls and it just,
it flexed.
It's just what like, because there's nothing underneath of it. So it just started going like a piece of paper in the breeze, which is not something you want to see in a house. And I'm sitting there like, oh, this is going to be great. I can't wait to work on this.
Oh, this looks fun.
Right. But from the walk, I mean, dude, in that walkthrough though, we talked about it on the phone. We met up, we walked through it. He's showing me that it's basically a hole in the ground. He's telling me about the work they already did. I'll start with the very few positives before getting into all the negatives. So the few positives were they did all the demo. Clearly all the demo was done because there's almost no house left. They did all the demo. They had to dig out the crawl space because the house was built in 1900. So over the last 119 years, that dirt just, like through dust or something, just fills back in. So they had to dig out all this dirt. There's a huge pile of dirt in the backyard. They also had the whole new subfloor in the backyard. They had all this lumber delivered, and they had all the shingles for the roof in the front part of the house. So those are the only positives. Is that I had some materials and the demo was done.
Okay.
The negatives were someone had to build it back, and it's in a very up and coming neighborhood in Lexington, and even at the time, it was it's still pretty rough now, but after spending a year in it, I can see the transformation happening. Like, it's a phenomenal spot to be in. But when I'm walking through that, I'm still new to everything. And the neighboring house to the right is great. It's owned by Vivian. She's awesome. And she saw us walking through and she starts talking to us right away. When are you going to fix this house? And then she goes on for about 10 more minutes about the other neighbors on the other side, about how, man, they're coming in, they're breaking in here. I think they're doing drugs. I see them breaking in your garage, doing all this, that, and the other. And I was like, oh boy, they are total like meth addicts. Like, there's no other way to sugarcoat it. So I was like, oh, perfect. That no problem there. Let me like put an offer on this place. So that's kind of what I was walking into at the start.
Yeah. So at this point, with all of the positives, demo being done, crawl space being dug out, subflooring is on site, shingles are on site, meth house is next door. Like, at what point are you looking at this and going, oh, this is a deal?
Almost none. Like, I think so. The timing, like, I always have to be doing something.
Okay.
And the timing of it was, I did one deal previously in Lexington, and I just finished. Like, it just got rented. I popped the champagne bottle because it was my first like investment property here. Super stoked, and I needed something to do, and I didn't have a lot of experience doing the renovations. Like, I did a cosmetic renovation in my house in Virginia before I moved, and the one I just finished before this was another very light renovation, like literally floors and paint. And I knew to get the big money, you had to know how to do everything. Like, the big house flippers know how to literally do everything in a house. So I knew it would be more of a learning experience. And through following, what's his name? Mark Ferguson.
Sure.
He's a bigger pockets dude. And
Yep.
he's got a great YouTube channel. Every house he's done, I'm like, he either buys the house for half price or there's $100,000 in room. And this deal had the latter. It had $100,000 in room. And it was a small house. It was 880 square feet total, little shotgun house. So I was like, there's like, I'll probably not make any money, but there's so much room in it. I probably won't mess it up too bad. Like, I'm not going to lose my shirt over it, and I'll learn a ton. So that's even from before I even put an offer in. I was like, that's probably what this is going to be.
So in our meetups, we would refer to this property as a university house, right? Like, you're buying because you're going to go to school and you're just going to learn on it, and that's the only point to do it is. And as you said, as long as you're not losing your shirt on it, or as long as you're not losing a significant amount of money, the experience you get on it to move to the next one is totally worth it.
Yeah, I like that phrase. I tell everyone this is my degree in real estate investing. This house. Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. So is there any negotiating on the deal? Like, did they tell you, here's, they just say the price and you go, or how do you get to the final purchase price?
So the negotiation was very simple, which from my continued experience, I've learned negotiating real estate is extremely simple. Like, you're just dealing with one number at a time.
Yep.
That's what it boils down to. So they said, after taking a look at it, put my spreadsheet together and everything, I asked them for their information too. So they gave me their budget because they were going into it as a flip on their own. And so ran their number, like their numbers looked fine. And they said, I was like, what are you looking for? And they said 45,000. I said, okay, let me think about it. I'll call you back. I was like, can you do 40? And they said, let me think about it. I'll call you back. And they said, can you do 42.5? And I said, fine, we can do 42.5. And that was it. It was probably over the span of like 15 minutes.
Okay. All right. So you've got the property at 42.5. How did you pay? Did you pay cash? Did you do hard money?
So for this one, I used cash from my HELOC on my very first house.
Great. Okay. So you just tapped on a line of credit in order to get into this thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. Okay. So, and short close on that, like 2 weeks, 10. Okay.
Yeah. There's nothing to expect. It's a hole in the ground. It needs everything. It was essentially just as soon as the title work and stuff could be done and scheduled and everything.
Got it. Okay. So at this point, you now have purchased your degree and it's start time to earning it. So,
Right.
what do you do first?
Actually, I did two things in parallel. Thing number one was I was so worried this house was going to fall over or burst into flames because of the meth neighbors and because it was held up by three beams. So the first thing I did was meet with their contractor they used to do all the demo.
Oh,
And his name's Martin, and he's phenomenal. I've used him for every other deal after this. He's fantastic. So I met Martin and I said, Martin, I need a foundation and a subfloor and the structure to be attached to it. So he started going on that like right away. And
okay.
then the other thing I started doing in parallel was refinance immediately. Which I should have, like, is kind of like a lesson learned, is I should have just gone through this, not like refinance, but I went and got a construction loan.
Oh, okay, got it.
So I should have done that in the first place because I'm sure they would have been fine with it. But yeah, so essentially I went through this refinance using construction loan. So they did an as is and a subject to appraisal. The as is appraisal came in at the purchase price, which is expected, and that has already bought it. And
Right,
then the subject to appraisal was the subject to once it's an actual home again.
right.
And in my numbers, I came up with 135,
Okay.
and the appraisal came back at 137. So that was nice. So then the bank gave me, I have my numbers right here. I'll give you the exact numbers. Da, da, da. Yeah, so they gave me 35,750 at the close of the refinance, which is like roughly 80% of the initial purchase price.
Okay.
And then I had 60,500 in draws as the construction went along.
Very
So
cool.
after like in the first month, I got a foundation, a floor, house lower back on, and then essentially like a $60,000 line of credit to continue the renovations.
Nice. Okay. So from there, you work with Martin, you get it up to a place where you're not concerned about it catching fire, blowing over, falling down, all that sort of stuff. What did you end up doing it to get it to where you thought it needed to be?
So over the next 8 months, the first month was very eventful. Over the next 8 months, I I was I just went so slow. Like there's just so much you don't know how to do, and I was trying to sub everything out and kind of GC it
Oh,
myself to save money, which is it's it it is a way to do it, but it did not work for me. I was working a ton. I was traveling a lot for work. Um, I was traveling for I'd see my parents, go back to Virginia. I was
for
all over the
sure.
place.
Yeah, yeah.
At the same time,
Life was
trying to
happening at the same time your investment property was trying to get worked on.
yeah, how rude of life to do that. But like but then I'm trying to do all that, and then I'm like, all right, let me call 12 plumbers, and none of them get back to me. Let me call
Oof.
15 electricians, and none of them I get two quotes, and one's obscene, and so I was just trying to like that honestly took so long. Me trying to essentially build a general contractor's business all at once for one
Got it.
deal. Eventually things started getting pieced together, like the rough and electric, the rough and plumbing got done, the framing got done. Um, Took a long time, and then everything was great. Everything was going great. It was taking time. Everything was going great, and then after my first construction draw, I was like, man, I'm gonna be way over budget. So I don't know if you want to jump into all those mistakes, but I went way over budget.
Oh no, what happened?
Getting the thing to close. I mean, it was tight to begin with. Like it appraised for 137. And my all-in budget purchase plus renovation, not counting holding costs and not
Right.
counting any unknowns, was like 120. So
Oof.
it's
It's
rough.
tight. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, so anything goes over that, like you're kind of screwed.
Right.
So it just took so much. I've never built a house before
Right.
and had to do it. So it's like, oh, this is how much it costs. It doesn't cost $2,000 to paint. It costs $3,600.
Oh no. Okay. Yeah. So it's just all the little things start adding up in the budget cycle and everything, and you're just
Yeah, and I'm sure you've seen it too. Like when people say they go $50,000 over budget, which I didn't. I only went 25,000 over budget. But
okay.
25, so I went $25,000 over budget. But it's not like two things that did that. It's
No.
12,
Yeah.
and you don't
It's like
notice it.
it's every $500 over that you're all of a sudden like, well, wait a minute, there were 30 things that were over by $500. So yeah, that adds up to 15,000 real quick.
Right, right.
Okay.
So dealing with inspections was a new process. I didn't know how to do that. There was no real hiccups. The only hiccup there was the framing inspection, because these are like little shotgun houses in the old downtown area. So they built them right next to each other. There's no
Oh.
distance between the houses.
Oh wow.
So the one neighbor is like 3 feet away, and then the other one is literally like 12 inches.
Oh wow.
Uh, so you have to get a fire rated wall, and I didn't know that.
Oh, sure.
So I did the siding. So that what I learned is you do like the outside sheathing, you do 5/8 inch fire rated drywall, and then you do your siding. I skipped that very important part
Oh
of putting the
no.
fire rated drywall. So I get the call from the inspector, and he's like, "Yeah, your house is gonna burn down because you don't have the fire rating." And he said, "You can either take off all your siding, which costs 7 grand to do all that,
Ooh.
and then put this up and then do it again, or you can get the drywall and put it between all the studs on the inside." So that cost $1,800 to fix. That was a nice
Yeah.
mistake there. But yeah.
Yeah. But at least it was an 1,800 repair, not a $7,000 repair.
Right, right.
Yeah. Got to see the good. Okay. So you get through construction. Again, there's overages all over the place. You're now 25,000 over budget. You get to closing on it. Was there anything that you discovered in that closing process on a construction loan that was, I mean, I know all of that was new to you, but was there anything
Mm.
that came up at that point?
No, gee, looking back at my numbers, I'm honestly can't believe they approved the loan just because of how thin the margins were. Like I was looking at a $15,000 pre-tax profit best case scenario, and they approved it. I mean, their risk was a little less because they only did 80% of the purchase plus renovation.
Sure.
But I was like, man, that's pretty wild. But it was a great tool to learn. I used it 2 other times after that because
Oh, cool.
it's such a great product. But it's pretty simple. It's almost like anything else. The only difference is you essentially get two appraisals, the as is and subject to. And the nice part is, especially if it's a rental property and doing the bird deals, the biggest question is it going to appraise for what I think it's going to appraise at the very end after I've
Right.
invested all this time and money and effort? With the construction loan, you know that before you even close on the deal. So you'll pay $350 for that appraisal before you do anything.
Sure.
Which I mean, that was really great. It just kind of gives you that extra, like, okay, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, yeah,
kind
yeah.
of thing.
Yeah, that light at the end of the tunnel of like, okay, as long as we, don't, have the thing burned down midway, we've got something that we can refer to and say like, okay, here's ARV, here's where we're gonna be. We're gonna be fine.
Mhm.
Very cool. Okay. So you get finished, you get construction, it's completed. You now have a refurbished property that has a floor and non-wobbly walls. What do you do with it?
So as this was going on, my initial intent was to flip it,
Okay.
get in, get out, learn a ton, make a little bit of money, and use that as a down payment for the next deal. After going way over budget, so my all in, so purchase was 42.5, the renovation was 105,000. So my all in is 147.5, and it appraised for 137. So selling is just out of the question. I've also put like 9 months of like blood, sweat, and tears into it. And
Yep.
so I kind of had that emotional attachment, which is not a good thing to have in investments, but this worked out. So selling it's out of the question. So new exit strategy, long-term rental, because I had 2 of those at the time.
Okay.
So contact my property manager, ask him, what would this rent for? It's brand new, it's beautiful. And he said $800 a month. which for $150,000 property, what I have into it, 800, it's like a 0.5% rule. That's not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as this is going, like over this 9-month period, I'm going to the meetups, I'm networking, I'm talking to people. My property managers led a few sessions about them launching their short-term rental Airbnb property management arm. And the numbers sound phenomenal. So I can't sell it. That won't work. Long-term rental won't work. So I asked them to like, hey, well, how this work is on Airbnb. And they said conservatively, it would bring in $1,900 a month in rents.
Wow.
That was not the case. So I went through and did it. It's an Airbnb. It launched in June, late June of this year.
Okay.
So they said conservatively it'd be 1,900. That was not the case. Since then, it's been netting 2,300 a month in rents. And last month was like $3,600. It was amazing.
Holy cow.
So 9 months of feeling like a failure,
Yeah. Yeah.
going way over budget and everything. All my exit strategies are exhausted. I almost like have to keep going and do it as an Airbnb. And it's just turned into this amazing little nugget of like cash flow. It's been
Wow.
fantastic.
So I mean, that's amazing that here in a pandemic that you're getting such great cash flow from an Airbnb property.
Do that.
Are they telling you like who's traveling and staying here?
It's been a little bit of a mix. So it's been some people just wanting to like get out of their house
Oh, okay.
and stay in an Airbnb. There's been a lot of longer stays. Like for this month, October is 100% booked from one person. They booked all of October through November 8th, just one person.
Wow.
And I think it's just from what they've been telling me, it's just people wanting to get out and not stay at a hotel because they're not sure like who's in and out. They can get
Sure.
into an Airbnb that's professionally clean and it's like their home essentially. But yeah, I couldn't believe it either. I was like, dude, this is awful. Because when the pandemic started and it really hit home in like April, I was committed to the Airbnb plan.
Right. Right.
I was like, dude, I'm so screwed.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. I'm gonna have one stay every other month, and
right.
that's it. Wow. No, that's amazing because I mean, over here on the West Coast, I mean, you've seen a lot of people that are doing okay in Airbnbs, but they're not in traditional urban areas. They are in staycation areas, where people are like, all right, we just want to go to the beach. So we want to get out of the house and go for a weekend or an extended weekend or that sort of stuff. But I hadn't even considered about marketing people like, do you just need a change of scenery? Do you literally just need to get out of your house for a week or a weekend and
Mhm.
not be around? That's amazing.
And this like totally changed the success of this totally changed my investment strategy too.
Oh, wow.
As the other reason I love this deal so much. So like the big changes for me where I'm not doing little shotgun houses with ARVs under like around 150 or so. I want to do bigger things. And then the other big thing was for Airbnbs. Like there's that one I bought before this one. Once the lease is done, I'm just going to turn it to an Airbnb.
Oh,
Because
sure.
you start looking at comps. You look at comps for Airbnbs the same way you do long-term rentals or flips. It's the same thing. You're just looking at a different platform. And then I'm looking at Asheville, North Carolina for the Airbnbs down there because they. So for the Airbnb, you can't change the number of days in a month. There's only going to be like 30, right?
Right.
But what you can change is how much you charge per day.
Right.
So if you have a property that's $90 a day, that's great, but you're capped at that 90 times 30. But the properties down there, Airbnb in for like $300 and $400 a night,
Whoa.
and they're fully booked. And I found some financing where I could do 5% down with no PMI. So I'm like, I'm doing that.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. If you
That's
can get Navy Federal, they're pretty. Have some pretty
Oh,
good.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife's parents are all Navy and stuff, and so their whole family swears by their products. They're just like you can't beat them.
Right.
Very cool. Okay, so let's before we run the numbers on the property and stuff, what was it that you did for the Well, everything you did. The question is
Yeah.
usually normally, what did you do for the first time on this deal? But you did everything for the first time on this deal, from getting the funding in a construction loan to hiring the contractors to going through inspections and appraisals and all that sort of stuff, and then having to figure out a brand new strategy for holding it that actually makes you money instead of costing you money.
Yeah, I checked all the boxes, like how to find an off-market deal, how to get funds for construction, how to do the renovation, every aspect of it,
Yeah.
every exit strategy explored. Like, yeah,
Yeah. I'm just going to put on this one like, yes, did first time.
yeah.
Okay. So knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently looking at this property the first time?
I've gone to see other properties that are like this, and I just kind of get PTSD, and I'm just like, never again. But it's one of those things. It's a little cliche, but like I wouldn't have changed a thing. Like I needed to go through that 9 months of education and learning and tripping and falling and failing uh, to adjust my mindset. Like that, this deal completely changed how I approach real estate investments, and it really it that 9 months just going through that afterwards, I've just kind of supercharged my investment career after that with all the knowledge before. So like, I really wouldn't. I wish I would have never. If I had the knowledge I did now, I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But since I did, like, it's kind of my baby. I want to keep it for a long time, and
Oh, very cool.
that's yeah. I love I love that house. I hated it
Yeah.
for 9 months, but now I love it. So
Yeah. 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 It starts off as the project you hate to have and own, but then you point at it too as, again, as you said, that proud certificate of I became an investor and this is the house that taught me everything I know. And it was terrible going through it, but man, I'm so good now because of it.
right. So it's my degree. I actually have a picture of it. It's right next to my college degree. And it's a picture of it when it was like on the stilts and everything like that. And I hung that up on the Airbnb too. It's the picture of it before is in the Airbnb. When you walk in the
Oh,
door, they see
that's
that.
so good. Very cool. Well, I think you've run through the other numbers here, but let's just make sure we've got them all. So, your purchase price on the property was 42.5.
Mhm.
Okay. Your reno was 105,000. Okay. The reno included all the other expenses, and we don't count the taxes and all that sort of stuff. Income today is been steady at 2,300 a month
It
ish.
varies a little bit, but yeah, I think the worst month was like 1,800 or 1,900.
Okay.
But it's yeah, around that. If you average it out, it's been that per month.
And that's still well above your 1% rule for what you're looking at. So that's great.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And at the end of the day, you change your entire strategy, and this is how you're acquiring stuff now and looking for the next thing. So that's just fantastic. Cool. Charlie, thank you for coming on. If people want to connect with you, where can they do that?
So if you want to just reach out and say hey, feel free to email me. My email is Charlie, CHARLIE, at muhexatonscholarship.org. It's MUHEXATONSCH scholarship. It's ironic because
We'll
I
put it in
run
the
the
show
scholarship
notes.
fund.
Yeah.
Yeah. But BX Scholarship, it's like a nonprofit around the side. And then I have a little YouTube channel. It's very just me just talking about whatever. The series I'm doing now is for my current flip, which has a lot more room than 15,000.
Good to hear.
But I kind of documented my last two deals. So I did another Burr property before this one, or I'm sorry, after the one we just talked about
Right.
for the last 30 minutes. But before my current flip, I did a Burr deal, and I just went through week by week. Here's what this looks like. It's not glamorous. Here's the problems I have to solve this week, and here's what I'm doing to do it.
Yeah.
Going through. And then for the flip, same thing, just each week going through and be like, all right, the drywall's done, but this got delayed and this, that, and the other. And
Yeah.
but yeah, it's Charlie's Pockets on YouTube.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, in regards to, the updates and stuff, I think that's awesome. I wish more people would do that so other people could see what it's like day, at least week by week. Because there's a couple of investors in our meetup that their philosophy is, oh, I must be a real estate investor. I'm wearing jeans, a t-shirt, I'm covered in dirt, and I don't know how to solve the next three problems that are in front of me, but I'm gonna figure it out before midnight.